Hello and welcome to episode 19 of the Melbourne AWS User Group podcast. I'm your host, Arjen, and as always, I'm joined by Jean-Manuel Becker.
Hello everyone, happy to be here.
And Guy Morton.
Hi everyone. I'm also happy to be here. I just don't always say it. You can just take it as read.
Thank you for that. I'm sure it won't be a surprise, but today we're discussing the news of October of 2021. And I can already tell you it is more interesting than some of our recent months have been. Admittedly, that's a pretty low bar. So let's get started with finally in Sydney.
Yeah, Mac instances. So this will be good for developers, front-end developers. Who are the people who use Mac instances? People doing Mac app development?
Basically anybody who wants a CI/CD set up for their iOS and similar apps.
Yeah.
Because they can only be built on Xcode with macOS running.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's right.
As far as I know, no changes have been made to the Mac instances, so it's still just the Intel ones. You don't get fancy Graviton. It would be nice if they, put in one of the new MacBook Pros in there or something.
The M1s with the M1 chips.
Yeah, the M1 and M1 Max or something like that.
I guess they'll have to wait for the M1s to go into the Mac Mini form factor, because that's the form factor that they're supporting, right? Are there M1s in the Mac Minis yet?
Yeah, but only the base M1, not the M1 Pro or M1 Max.
Mm-hmm. I'm sure it'll come in time.
Yeah, probably chip shortages preventing them from releasing that at the moment.
Right.
Yeah, so to be able to do that, you need to reserve a Mac One Metal host to be able to host your IMI, and you can have Mojave 1014, Catalina 1015, and Big Sur 11. It used in the backend the Nitro system for connecting back to the AWS network, which is cool, and feature the i7 processor, like you said. So I had a look. There is no spot instance, so you need to really book that that box for the day. It's $1.35 per hour in Australia, but it's $1.08 in the US. So we get a very strong tax here to be in Sydney. Yeah. And then so you need to book that for 24 hours because that's a licensing issue with Apple and demand. But you can have saving plans and to try to save your money. And so you can go down to commit for 3 years to 76 cents an hour.
And once you've booked your 24 hours, it's hourly billing, I think, isn't it?
No, per second billing.
Per second billing after the first 24 hours. Yeah. Your first 86,400 seconds are included in the price.
So it's around 44 Australian dollar a day if you want to run that on demand, and like $1,000 a month. So a bit of deal.
Yeah, it's pricey, but you generally don't need to run them all the time, I suspect.
Yeah. I guess as you say, if you're looking for something to power a build process and you just want to offload that onto a machine there, that would kind of make sense. Or if you have a day or a week where you do all your builds in AWS, then I guess that would kind of make sense. I'm sure there's plenty of use cases.
But it's in that machine, right? You have 12 vCPU and 32 gig memory. You use EBS in the backend and up to 25 gig bandwidth for the network.
Groovy.
And the other new thing is the memory DB for Redis. We discussed this, I don't remember if it was last month or the one before when it became GA, but it came here pretty quickly.
Yep. Yeah, I think it was actually only last month. It feels like only last month.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was pretty quick. Yeah. So this is neat. I think it'll find a place in a lot of app stacks. Basically, a in-memory database based on Redis, so compatible with Redis. Can do multi-AZ, so it's very durable, very, very fast because it's in memory. So yeah, so something that's quite, I guess, robust in a sort of production workload.
Yeah. And you can use the latest DBR6 instances on it. So from 2 CPUs, 30 gig memory to 64 CPUs and 419 gig memory. So it's pretty nice machine. And yeah, you have a price per hour like any other environment. And you can see on their website, the launch partner is Netflix and Twilio. So all the very big consumer of AWS, so I'm sure they were part of the request to have that new service instead of Elasticache, so much more durable and multi-AZ type of environment.
Yeah.
Very different use case than Redis in Elastic Caches.
Yeah, and you have an extra cost as well for any data written to memory of 20 cents per gig. So it's not only the instance, it's as well how much you write to the memory.
Right, cool.
And that's it for Finally in Sydney.
Mm-hmm.
Let's move on to serverless and a couple announcements here. For Lambda, you can now trigger Lambda functions from an SQS queue in a different account. That's obviously nice if you have cross-account setups.
Yeah, I mean, it's a nice way of decoupling, I guess, whilst maintaining a sort of multi-account strategy. Makes some sense. I just wonder, there's kind of a bit of an overlap here between EventBridge and this, isn't there, in a way? Like, because you kind of could do similar things, either, like you could kind of go either way in a way, couldn't you? I mean, EventBridge is a similar sort of mechanism in a way. You're still publishing messages.
Yeah.
And you can still go cross-account there as well.
I suspect that this setup might be a bit cheaper though.
Right.
Yeah, less moving parts, I guess, yeah. So you will need permission to manage the message in the SQS queue, obviously to execute the Lambda function in the other account and vice versa, and then grant account permission as well to Lambda to do that. So a bit more IAM probably permission to name the RN of the SQS queue.
Yeah, so put your thinking hats on if you're going to set that up. It's going to take a little bit of brain power to figure out what you have to do.
And the other Lambda item is IAM authentication for Amazon MSK as an event source.
Is better than it used to be when you have account and password, right? So you can use IAM now and give the role to Lambda, and so it's much more secure and easier to connect to MSKs. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
No, that's definitely an improvement.
Cool. Just a couple of step functions announcements, yeah. So the headline is Step Function supports 200 AWS services, and if you read the fine print, it's through an SDK integration, so it's kind of cheating. So they're not sort of first-class integrations, I guess, or what they refer to as optimized integrations. So there's still 48 of those, so that's not bad. But so these integrations are done using basically allowing you to declare a resource that is essentially a CDK call. So not CDK, an SDK call, beg your pardon. Got CDK on the brain. Yeah, so you can use an SDK API call as you would specify a Lambda ARN or a DynamoDB get item call as a resource in your step, and instead call basically, as I say, the 200 integrations that you can use with SDK. So that lets you hook in a lot of services you couldn't hook in before. The only thing you'd need to be careful about is that with the other integrations, especially if you're using something like SAM, a lot of the IAM permissions that are needed to do what you need to do comes along with that optimized integration, whereas with these SDK integrations, you're going to have to keep track of what your state machine is trying to do, and you'll need to make sure that you update your IAM policies so that your step function is able to actually allowed to do those things that you're doing with the SDK. But yeah, I mean, look, it's a really nice additional. Step functions is just getting better and better all the time.
Yep. And under the hood, this basically uses the new Cloud API Cloud Control API that we'll be discussing later on.
Yep, just another way of creating things, which is obviously what we all needed.
More choices, yes.
But think of all the inline JSON you can now put in there.
Yes.
Woohoo! Yes, indeed. And the other one was AWS Batch has console support now for visualizing step functions workflows. So this is something that they put in the Lambda console as well, not that long ago, I think. I can't remember when they did it. But this is kind of popping up, the ability to, because obviously they see step functions as a great orchestrator of other things. I guess they're going to start trying to help you use step functions to orchestrate your stuff. So much as you can see, like there's now state machines tab in the configuration in Lambda console. I actually haven't looked at AWS Batch, the console for how step functions state machine is shown there, but you can sort of imagine, I guess, that the usefulness of being able to see that representation of your state machine and where Lambda is fitting into it and where Batch is fitting into it. Yeah, so I think that's kind of a nice usability improvement.
Yep. Then on the Amplify side, Amplify Geo is now GA.
Yep.
Oh, that sounds A bit, is it tongue breaker?
Alliterative.
Yeah.
Yep. So this is the client libraries that sit on top of the Amazon location service, and lets you basically add mapping features and functions to your app, your Amplify app, very easily. So yeah, and also to therefore use some of those other things that the location service gives you, which is like geofencing and routing on maps and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, so the developer preview was announced in August, and Amplify Geo for JavaScript now is fully available.
Neato. And the other Amplify announcement is just the ability to support upload resume for file uploads. If your app is uploading files to S3, you can now resume those file uploads if your user of the connection breaks and you want to continue a big upload that you started. So that's kind of handy. And
the other bigger announcement here was the public preview or beta version. They kind of mix it up of AWS SAM Accelerate. So basically this is changes mostly to the SAM CLI with some extra functionality in there. So you've got SAM Sync, which allows you to only deploy the code and basically bypass the whole CloudFormation thing. This will be faster, and the biggest thing there is probably the watch flag. So you can have it continuously running, and anytime you save a file, it will automatically sync it to the cloud for quicker development and testing there, which is pretty cool.
Yep. Sounds a bit dangerous, but yeah.
I assume this will only happen in dev environment.
Yes, yeah. I hope so.
I don't think you want to bypass things in your production environment.
No, indeed.
Similarly, other things that are included there is partial builds. So you can use SAM build --cached, and that will allow you to have caching built into your build structure. And they've done some other things as well around that, with moving some of the SAM specific code into its own Lambda layer, so it doesn't need to be updated whenever you do a push.
Cool.
And aggregated logs, because they now include CloudTrail and X-Ray as well. So all improvements if you do stuff there.
Yeah, cool. And is that, do you need to upgrade your SAM local CLI tools to get those? Yeah.
Yeah, it's new. It's literally new CLI commands or new CLI flags.
Yeah.
So.
Neat.
Speaking of neat, let's go to containers.
They are neat because they're very contained.
I guess that the main thing here is probably FileGate support for Windows containers, if you must.
If you must, yes. So FileGate now support Amazon ECS Windows containers. It supports Windows 2019 long-term service channel on FileGate, and is built per second with a granularity after the first 15 minutes. So you have a price tax to be on Windows as well. When you look at the price as well per CPU and per hour, is quite a different pricing. The Linux is 4 cents, around 4 cents an hour for vCPU, and 0.05 cents for gigabyte per hour for memory, where it's almost double the price for vCPU on Windows is 10 cents an hour, and you need to pay on top of that the license fee as well for Mr. Microsoft. So it's another 4.6 cents an hour, and then the gigabyte per hour as well. So which is twice the price, 1.2 cents. Big task of running Windows, but if you need to run that on containers and do what you have to do, then Windows it is to go.
So if you'd like to set fire to piles of cache, then now's your opportunity. You can now burn it even faster than you could before.
I mean, to be honest, FileGate is an awesome service, right? You don't have to run nodes and stuff like that. So if you need to run a container now and then why not? Yeah, that's good.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, no, FileGate is great. If you have a Windows container that you need to run, I would highly suggest looking into upgrading to a modern version of .NET Core, which runs on Linux.
Yes.
Yes, absolutely. Exactly. And we'll get onto Babelfish later on.
Yes.
We're we're doing a lot of knocking of the poor old, Microsoft people tonight, aren't we? Yeah. that it is a sport that we all enjoy.
There is a support as well for Bottle Rocket inside EKS managed node groups. So you can start deploying inside EKS the managed node from AWS with the Bottle Rocket operating system. Bottle Rocket was I think released last year, and give consumers a simple way of to provision manage compute capacity with a simple IMI, very light version of the IMI. So that's an improvement if you can use Bottle Rocket.
And Bottle Rocket's the open source OS, basically, that AWS kicked off to basically be a very stripped down Linux-based operating system for running containers, yeah? They've taken out all the fat, all the things that they didn't need.
Yeah, and having it more secure and stuff like that, which probably will impact some enterprises who have all their security stuff that they need to run on the nodes and things like that, that probably won't run on Bottle Rocket.
Right.
Because it's too stripped.
Too light, yeah.
You need to install all those exploitable packages on it so that you can guard against those exploitable packages being exploited, right? That's basically the logic, isn't it?
Yeah. But I think it was a test. You will get much more compute and memory available for your pods. So what's a go if you can?
Yep. And CDK for Kubernetes is now generally available too. So, for the CDK fans out there, and I know you're out there, I know it's not just me. And if you're a CDK fan and a Kubernetes fan, well, there you go. All your dreams are answered in one nifty project.
Yep. Part of that release is also that CDKs, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah, CDKs, yeah.
Now also fully has support for Go.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
So if you like CDK, if you like Kubernetes, and you love Go, well,
I think we've got like a Venn diagram here with 3 big circles and maybe only a very small overlap between the 3. But anyway, yeah.
Just remember Kubernetes itself is in Go, so there's some overlap there.
Yeah, for sure.
And AWS says there is more support for more language coming soon. So that will be, so it's TypeScript, JavaScript, Python, Java, and Go at the moment.
Yeah, cool.
Maybe .NET soon.
Oh, be still my beating heart. Excellent. What else have we got in containers? Anything else that you think's worth mentioning, or is it all a bit?
ECS Anywhere supports GPU-based workloads.
Mm-hmm.
In all honesty, if anybody actually uses ECS Anywhere, please feel free to reach out, because I'm curious about why and how.
Yeah. Isn't the point of it supposed to be that you can kind of have an ECS cluster on your on-prem network and like prove everything works before you deploy out to ECS on AWS?
It's not necessarily for testing. It's really like,
right.
Well, most people who run Docker containers on-prem these days do it using Kubernetes.
Yeah.
If you didn't want to go through the pain of Kubernetes and you would love to use the ECS management container system, then you just install a couple of nodes, put your ECS agent and SSM, have a HTTPS connection back to AWS, and voila, you can deploy tasks straight to your on-prem environment. For compliance reason, encryption reason, I mean, there is many different type of reason you might want to run that on-prem, but two simple agents on your node and you can run that on-prem. And obviously now you can add GPU to your task. So I don't know if you run Bitcoin mining, maybe. Containers.
You wouldn't do that on containers, would you? You'd use bare metal. Yeah. Anyway, cool.
The only other thing here is that after a mere, 10 years that ECS has existed, you can now see it in AWS's own mobile application.
It's a round of applause.
EC2 and VPC done.
Mm-hmm.
Big news. A new instance type again.
Yeah. And we all love new instance types.
Yes.
Well, I think you do mainly, actually, Arjen. I think you're the main new instance type enthusiast. So what do you find?
This is just a boring standard Intel one.
Yeah, it is a bit, isn't it? It's just this is a Xeon. Is it a Xeon processor? What is it? It's so it's the new Intel scalable, blah blah blah, yada yada, batch processing, machine learning, high end gaming. So it's based on, what's it based on? The Intel Xeon. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's the C6i.
Yep.
The I indicating that it's an Intel, which is still something they only do for the CM and presumably R and maybe the X instance types and nowhere else.
Yep. And it's not really sort of setting the world on fire in terms of compute price performance. It's 15%, up to 15% improvement. So it's not, it's not going to change your life necessarily. Up to 9% higher memory bandwidth, up to 40 gigabits per second for EBS, 50 gigabits for networking, always on memory encryption.
Yeah, so nice size. But same price at C5. So that's awesome, right? You got all of that for free.
Yeah. I suppose I'm being churlish, aren't I? It's only 15%. I guess we're spoiled because we see Graviton and we see 40% improvement, or big posting big numbers, and so we've been spoiled. It's not our fault.
So basically, this is in the same size, would then still be slower than the Graviton ones, and more expensive.
Yeah, and they kill the planet because they use more power, right? So they're not green either. It doesn't mention how much power they use compared to the ARM processors, but it'd be interesting to see that comparison too.
And the heat.
Yep. But on the other hand, I'm pretty sure they go up to a higher size than the Graviton ones do.
They go up to 11, you're saying?
Well, to 32, like large.
Right.
So 128 vCPUs and 256 gig memory. That's a nice machine. So at the moment, for October, only US East, US West and region, but now just came to Sydney this month.
Yep.
Oh, good. Oh, this month, meaning?
The month of recording.
November.
Yes.
Right. Okay, so we can't talk about that.
They're coming soon.
You've ruined it now.
They're coming soon.
You've ruined Christmas. JM ruins Christmas.
So if you can just upgrade, same price for each level and better performance.
Yeah, but only if you're in those regions. Oh no, it's here now.
It's in here now.
Good, yeah, okay. Spoiler.
And obviously, despite any comments about Graviton being better in every single way, that's not the case if your code doesn't run on ARM. So this is obviously a good improvement.
Yeah.
Yeah, where are you going to run my Windows box?
Anyway, moving on. One that I think we all find very convenient is that you can now share AMIs across organizations or organizational units.
Yep.
So where before you had to share it separately per account, now you can actually just say, give everybody access to this secure AMI, which makes things a lot easier.
Yeah.
So that can be done only through the CLI, I believe, and you need to modify the image attribute for the AMI and state your org ID or UID to be able to share that AMI, and that will appear in all the other accounts and they can start consuming it.
In other words, if you don't have your AMI creation automated yet, do it now.
Yes.
So the advantage of that too is that when you add new accounts, those accounts will automatically have access.
Correct. Yeah. Or when you remove account, then they lose access to your AMI as well. Yeah.
Groovy. Yep.
I think the other big one here is a bit unclearly named attribute-based instance type selection for EC2 autoscaling and EC2 fleet. Basically, what you can do there is a while back, I think sometime last year or the year before, autoscaling got the ability to define multiple instance types, where you could say, okay, I want a M5 extra large or M5 2x large if they're not available, and I want them a spot or not spot and all that. And with this change, you can instead say, okay, I want instances that have a minimum of 2 CPUs, maximum of 4 CPUs. I don't really care about the rest. Just give me whatever is cheapest, and I want a certain percentage of it as spot.
Yep.
And then it will automatically manage that for you, which is a lot easier than the other way around.
Yep. I mean, this just seems like such an easy thing for them to have done it in the first place, in a way. But yeah, so it's basically figuring it out for you rather than you having to figure it out. Presumably also you can specify memory that you want and all this. So if you need sort of high memory instances, you can say it can be, 2 to 4 CPUs, but it has to have at least X amount of memory, and it will just match those. And I think you can also you can set it on different, so I think by default it's going to go for the lowest cost. So it'll look for the lowest cost instances in that that meet those criteria. But I think I was reading something about it having some other potential like algorithms that it would use to make decisions. So it's basically typically lowest price. For spot instances, ABS supports capacity optimized and lowest price allocation strategies. And for on-demand, it supports just the lowest price allocation strategy. Yeah, so I'm not actually sure what the capacity optimized strategy is. Do either of you guys know what that refers to? As the lowest price is obviously easy to understand.
I would say if you have a reverse capacity in that account, then it will use that in priority. Parases.
Or maybe it means it will give you the instances that there are the most of, perhaps, so that they're the safest, you're the most likely to keep getting them. I don't know. Yeah.
Either way, there are a lot of settings you can tweak it on, up to local storage, yes, no, how much, what type, bare metal, burstable, so the T-type instances. You can figure out a lot of those. So if you're going to play around with this, I'd say clearly read the documentation and then just define however you want it.
Yeah, and there's an API for you to get instance types from instance requirements. So you can specify a set of requirements and then just find out what it would have given you, what EC2 instance types it thinks match that. So yeah, there's a bit of tooling around it to help you figure out what requirements actually give you the answers you expect. Because I guess you don't want to suddenly get answers you didn't expect. So there's some tooling around that which you can explore.
Well, of course, this could mean if you use this, one day you'll wake up and suddenly your instances are all running on C6i instead of C5.
Yes, that's right. That's true.
Speaking of Microsoft and our love for it, there are now the SQL Server on Windows Server 2020.
2022, yeah.
AMI is available.
Because we're marching into the future.
And you can run SQL 17 or SQL 2019, yeah. All the versions.
Yep. I have to mention Elastic Beanstalk announcement because it gets mentioned so rarely that I feel sorry for it. Like, when was the last time we had an announcement related to Elastic Beanstalk? So you can't remember one, can you? You can't remember one. It's been so long. Yeah. So now you can decouple a database.
Finally, that was
Yeah, I know, exactly. That's why I thought it was worth mentioning. So when you created a database in an Elastic Beanstalk instance previously, you couldn't decouple that later on. So if you wanted to actually grow away from your Elastic Beanstalk environment, for instance, and you decided that you wanted to retain your database because it's been running for the last 2 years in your Elastic Beanstalk cluster, but you wanted to spin your Elastic Beanstalk compute part out into ECS or something else.
Opswork.
Don't mention Opsworks. I'm triggered. I have to redo my SA Pro certification really soon, and I've just got these night sweats that they're going to ask me about Opsworks. Do you remember the SA Pro exam that was like? I think they've taken it out now.
They've taken it out. I did mine last year.
Yeah, I did recently. It's not there. It's maybe still in the Pro Dev though.
Cool. Yeah, I'm pretty sure it is in the Developer Pro because I'm pretty sure I only did that only the start of last year, and yeah, no, that was definitely, they definitely asked about it in that, but no, so anyway, sorry for the trigger moment,
because it was questions related to that, right? When you wanted to do a blue-green on EB, you were terminating your RDS at the same time. Oops, you lose your data. Yeah,
exactly. That's right. Exactly. So anyway, the good thing is you can now decouple it. So happy days if you're on Elastic Beanstalk and you've been grumpy about that. But I think actually it's only going to work if you launch it new. It's not going to work to decouple an existing environment, I suspect. But anyway, yep. Okay, we've talked about Elastic Beanstalk enough now.
Oh, good.
Honor is satisfied. FPGA announcement. I always like to call those out when we see them. So the FPGA, the F1 instances now have the ability to use jumbo frames in the networking of the virtual Ethernet frameworks. So if you want to program a field programmable gate array on Amazon, you can now use Jumbo Frames to get maximum networking bandwidth for your particular use case, which you would have to have in order to be doing things with FPGAs. But if you've got a use case for that and you need more throughput, you can now do Jumbo Frames. So happy days.
Cool. Amazon VPC flow logs now support Apache Parquet. I think that's pretty important for people to look at that. It will be a compressed format, so Parquet is a compressed format, and much easier to scan and to load. Yeah. So we save 25% on S3 storage, and you can enable that on a new flow log.
And it's also going to be more compatible with doing queries with it through Athena and things like that. It's going to be quicker to use. Yeah.
Probably less readable as well if you just want to look at the logs themselves. So you will need a tool to be able to parse it. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And network load balancer supporting TLS 1.3. So NLB now support 1.3, used to support only 1.2. You can use LCM. Yeah, more improvement with 1.3, better security.
Yeah, and we can't forget that Lightsail now supports CloudFormation.
Yeah, I knew you'd have to bring that one up.
What's the point?
I know it feels a certain amount of cognitive dissonance there, isn't there? Like if you just want to point and click and create a server and a database and just install WordPress, have it pre-installed with WordPress, use Lightsail. But you might want to set that up with CloudFormation.
Yeah, you might want infrastructure as code to look cool.
No.
Yeah.
Yeah, it does seem a bit odd, but look, they must have got a request from someone that said, I
want to deploy 500 Lightsails. Give me a CloudFormation template. Yeah.
Yeah. And I guess...
Or it could just be part of the every service needs support for CloudFormation, and the Lightsail team, unlike a whole bunch of other teams, actually listened.
Ooh, shots fired. Wow.
I have no idea how good it is, by the way, because I did not bother looking at it.
Yeah, no.
Yeah, can you deploy your containers to CloudFormation and Lightsail? That would be interesting.
No, it's only instances, disks, and databases, according to the announcement.
I want them to have, like, WordPress as a CloudFormation resource, latest WordPress. I don't really. Cloud Control. We've moved on, haven't we?
Yes, we're now in DevOps.
Yeah. So Cloud Control. I'm sure, Arjen, you must have looked at this.
Looked at it. I haven't really had a chance to play around with it much yet.
It's like the one ring to rule them all concept yet again, isn't it? Like It's forget about Terraform, or you can use Terraform, but why don't you use it through Cloud Control and use Cloud Control to drive Terraform to create resources? Or am I getting that wrong?
No, it's more Terraform to drive Cloud Control and to be a more simpler type of operator, yeah.
Right.
So you can do that through CLI. You need to upgrade your CLI to 2.3 minimum. And it's simpler. Get resource, create resource. That's a simple command you can use.
That's a simple command, and then you have blob of JSON.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. That's what I didn't. That's what didn't.
Then you need to learn CloudFormation to be able to create your JSON payload and then send that to create. So I think it's good for get resource, probably, because you can, just name what you want and do a quick. Instead of learning easy to describe and all of that, you can just get resource. But to create stuff, you still that very complex JSON payload that you need to generate anyway. So I don't know.
Yeah. Was there a demand for this? Like, was there who was asking for this? I'm just wondering.
Well, HashiCorp and Pulumi are the launch partner.
I saw that. Yeah. So do you think it's driven by? Do you think it's AWS is doing this because they think people might drift away to Terraform or Pulumi because it's perceived as easier, or is it the model that it's like you're defining your infrastructure and then saying, this is the target state I want it to have, like that Terraform model?
I don't know, but there is CDK to respond to Terraform. I don't know. That's another...
Does it? I mean, CDK seems to fill a slightly different spot to me, but I mean, isn't the kind of the key difference, or the key kind of conceptual differentiator for Terraform, that the way you declare your infrastructure is like you're basically saying what state you want it to have, and then it's going away and figuring out how to make that state happen. And it's looked to me like Cloud Control was using similar kind of language, like here's the thing I want and here's the state I want it to have.
Yeah, maybe you're right. Yeah.
Maybe. The other, I would say, launch partner is obviously, though, step functions. Because that's using this.
Is it?
That is how they get the 200s.
Oh, the SDK. Right. Gotcha, of course.
Because that is literally the same commands.
Yeah. Right.
But you can create your own, because it relies on the CloudFormation public registry, right, to create that resource name and the type name and the desired state. So part of the announcement, and I didn't try that, you could create your own product name, Arjen. And people can use AWS Cloud Control, create resource, type name Arjen, and then automatically he will get that.
He will appear.
He will appear in your account as an infrastructure product. So that could be, a large-scale way of doing marketplace product for people with infrastructure as code.
I mean, I think it's interesting. It just feels to me like there's so many ways now to create infrastructure and define what you're building. And it's kind of, it just feels like this is just another one being thrown into the mix, and it would be good to get some sort of sense of where this is heading and, what sort of horses one should be looking to back, I guess, because they're all quite different approaches. I mean, I guess this is, at the end of the day, it's just an API. It's not a replacement for CloudFormation per se. It's just really another way of generating the same sorts of resources that CloudFormation is generating, which at the end of the day is calling an API and making things happen anyway, right?
But yeah, I guess the fact that it uses CloudFormation under the hood might actually explain as well why Lightsail now has CloudFormation support.
Oh, right.
So that you can use Cloud Control with it.
Yeah, create resource, type name, Lightsail. Yeah.
Yeah.
But I mean, to be honest, in enterprise, what do we see? We see CloudFormation or Terraform. That's it. Very little other kind of pocket of things. I mean, in my contact with big enterprise is what I see, and mainly Terraform is winning.
I see more CDK now as well.
Okay. I found that some people don't want to learn the language, or they don't want to bother with TypeScript or Python, and they say they just ignore it.
Well, a lot of it is with the application teams who already write their applications in the same language.
That's right.
Yeah.
I think that's exactly right. Yeah. I mean, speaking as somebody in that space, I think CDK is appealing because it's something you understand. It's an application. It's interesting. Did anyone see or listen to the Ian McKay's podcast that he did? I think he bagged CDK a little bit. Well, he didn't bag it, but he was basically sort of saying the reason he prefers CloudFormation over CDK is just the nature of CDK being written in a programming language. The implicit kind of risk in that is that every time you run it, you get a different result, right? And whereas with a CloudFormation template, with static YAML, it's not a programming language. It's not, you don't have that same, the sense is not the same that it can be varied, or it can morph from what you deployed, So it's interesting, and I guess it's interesting how even the CDK has drifted a little bit from some things you could do in CDK previously. They're kind of stopping you from doing things like it seems like the CDKs, some things you used to be able to do, like read. Like get the VPCs or the subnets from your account. Some of those sorts of things they're sort of now saying, you shouldn't really work that way. You should have a hard-coded file of, configuration that you check into your repository and use with your CDK project, which is kind of, it feels like the ideas around this sort of stuff are sort of morphing a little bit. About what the right way to do it is, and what all the, I guess, pros and cons of different ways of doing this stuff. As I guess people get more experience, they're sort of figuring out what's good to do and what's bad to do.
I thought there was a strength to be able to do a more dynamic type of templates and adapting to what the infrastructure is.
Yeah.
Like loading SSM parameters and all of that on the fly, that's much better than hard coding stuff, right?
Sure. Absolutely. And I think that ability to actually, because it's a program, to morph it and make it do different things. Well, the obvious example is, different, environments, and, you want to have slightly different behavior in different environments or different instance types or whatever, all those sorts of things. Yeah, I mean, that is definitely a reason to use it. But I can also see the other side of that where, the fact that something might change and you didn't necessarily expect it or want it to change, it makes engineers nervous. To have things be unexpected. So, yeah.
Other things in DevOps, CodeGuru has some more integrations with third-party toolings. I guess that's nice.
Yep, mostly Java related. The Infer thing is a Java feature, a Java integration of an open source project. And the only one that I like is the Python one.
The Bandit version, yeah.
Yeah. So I think that's for detecting sort of common...
The OWASP categories.
Yeah, it's the OWASP stuff, yeah. Speaking of CDK, so there's some news around 4 new releases of CDK. I'm surprised that they actually made an announcement about this, actually, because they're up to version 125 of version 1, and... so they do releases all the time, but they've actually done a proper announcement this time. I guess because they've got some features that have been released in these versions for supporting the new CloudWatch rollback behaviors. So you can do the rollback behavior where you retain resources that were successfully created and retry.
CloudFormation, you mean?
What did I say?
You said CloudWatch.
CloudWatch, sorry. Yes, CloudFormation. Do beg your pardon. Too many cloud words. So it's got support for that partial deploy, and there's some other stuff around hot swap deployments, but I'm not really quite sure how that works. But it's to do with just deploying bits that have changed. Specifically, it's around Lambda, but additional resource types are coming. So it'll have like a watcher, I think, which is similar to what Sam has now, Arjen. I think that, so I suspect that the similar features are being rolled into CDK as well. At least version 1. I don't know about version 2 because they don't ever seem to announce anything about version 2.
Anyway, moving on, we have our mandatory mention of Amazon Corretto.
Oh.
That has the October quarterly updates, which is so pointless that not even AWS itself describes what has changed.
He's so unkind. There is one other announcement in the IAC thing, though. The CloudFormation customers can now manage their applications in AWS Systems Manager. Have you guys seen Application Manager in Systems Manager?
No, we don't use it.
Not really. And I tried to avoid this.
Right, you try to avoid it. Why is that? You don't like it, or you just yeah? I mean, the interesting. I only bring it up because I happen to be looking in CloudWatch at the application monitoring feature that basically lets you point at a CloudFormation stack, and it will then go through and query, find all the resources, then
find the resources and show you that in the dashboard. Yeah.
But yeah. Put them all on a dashboard for you, which actually looked pretty interesting. I don't know how useful it is or how customizable it is, or whether in practice it becomes annoying. But it looked to me like this is all part of that same piece.
Yeah, probably. Yeah, and then because System Manager, it's the application component as well. Yeah, the application manager part to be able to see your app into that dashboard. Yeah.
Yep, and it has things like compliance, a compliance checker, and so you can kind of look at your resources. The interesting thing about it, or the neat thing about it, one of the neat things about it too, was it actually aggregated all your logs for all those resources in a single list too. So you could just actually go in under the logs tab, and here's the log for your API gateway, here's the log for all your different Lambda functions, here's the log for your Dynamo table, here's the log for, and it was all sort of in one spot.
Does it force you to have nested stack then for your application to be able to link them together? No.
No? Oh, I don't know. Yeah, I guess maybe. I guess the one thing I did wonder about was, well, can I add another stack to this? Because actually my application's made of, 4 stacks, and they're not. Then I want to be able to put them all on the one dashboard.
That's what I meant. Like, if you had net stack, that they could detect. Yeah.
So yes, I don't know. Maybe. Do you think it's a dastardly plot to make you use nested stacks?
Yes.
Could be. Yeah. Don't drink the Kool-Aid.
But just to help troubleshooting, I guess, and then centralize that. In the past, I know that for customer we had to create, dashboard from the CloudFormation at the end of the CloudFormation to have that quick CPU memory and stuff like that. And now that can be done automatically. That's probably an improvement there. Yeah.
Yeah. Look, I think it's got potential. I don't know. It may not be very mature yet. It may be something that that gets seen as a just poorly implemented feature. I haven't had enough time to look at it yet, but I thought it was interesting at least. And if you haven't had a look at it yourself, then have a look at it.
An interesting one is the fault injection simulator. Now can inject spot instances interruption. So for people who want to use spot instances and test it without suffering the impact, then I'll remind everyone that spot instance interruption notice have a warning of just 2 minutes. So you need to be able to stop your instance and get the logs out and do all sorts of things. So you can now use the FIS, the fault injection simulator, to simulate a spot instance recall and see if your application can survive.
Okay, on to security.
AWS Firewall Manager now supports centralized logging for AWS network firewall logs. So that's pretty good. You can choose a filter web request based on role actions, apply the web request on both, and then for each filter you can now indicate whether matching request should be logged or not. So that allow you to reduce the number of logs as well, and you can do that across your organization through Firewall Manager. So that's good.
Yeah, and there's another network firewall announcement around rule ordering. So previously, the network firewall would evaluate all your pass rules before evaluating any drop rules or alert rules, and now you can actually order them however you like. So you can have a pass rule, then a drop rule, then a alert rule, then a pass rule, and it will evaluate them in the order that you specify, rather than the order that they felt like doing them in.
So give you more permutation possibilities to create denial rules. Yeah.
Then on the AWS backup side, we've got fault lock, which basically allows you to they call it an extra layer for backup protection. Yeah, it allows you to lock a backup so it can't be changed.
Or can be deleted. Yeah.
It can't be deleted mostly. Yeah.
So it's done through the CLI or the API, and you need to define your obviously the vault lock. How long you can change it. You have a grace period, a bit like Glacier has a vault lock, the same, and you have a minimum retention and a maximum retention. And then from there, basically your backup vault become write once, read many, where you can restore from that, but you can't delete. And for people who need to have long-term retention for backups, that's a good way of just simply protecting your account for any attacks. There was some attack in the past where people were deleting all the resources, including the snapshot, into your account when they were hacked. Then in that case, the vault will protect that, and you will be able to restore your data from that. And that's applied obviously for everything inside the AWS backup vault. So EFS, snapshots, EC2, RDS, and Dynamo, I believe. Yeah.
Yeah. Cool.
Then I think one of the most requested features for Security Hub arrived with cross-region aggregation. So you're now no longer stuck with having a Security Hub in each region, having to go through each of them to see what happened. You can now send it all to one single Security Hub instance in a single account from all your regions and accounts.
You will hope they're all green, because otherwise it will be unreadable. I think, with all the region available, and if you have 100 accounts, I don't know how you can just be able to see what's green, what's not. But yeah, interesting. Centralization. People in security, they'll have to have that one pane of glass, which I hate the name.
SPOG. We need a SPOG.
To be able to see all your security in one place. That might be a useful feature, yeah.
Yep.
AWS License Manager now supports delegated administrator for management and entitlement. So you can delegate an AWS account just for your license manager. That has been a process that all the product from AWS have been doing recently in the last 2 years, I guess. Get everything out of the master account into a different account dedicated for that specific function, for backup, for firewall manager, for license manager now. So that's that you're all following for that.
And when you say master account, you mean main account, obviously.
The root account, the main. Data storage and processing. Good news. The good news of the month.
Yeah, that's right.
Who wants to talk about Babelfish?
We all want to talk about Babelfish. So Babelfish is a layer for translating requests that you'd normally need a SQL server to listen to and translate them into a language that Postgres can understand. So it adds essentially a compatibility layer to Postgres, Aurora Postgres, to translate TDS, which is the wire protocol the SQL Server uses, to a standard sort of SQL dialect that you don't have to pay a fortune for a server to interpret for you.
So do you know where the name comes from?
It comes from the Babelfish, which is a creature in the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
You pop it in your ear and it translates any language on the fly into the language you understand. So yeah, it's a good name for it. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think that's the exact function that, and hopefully we're going to see more of them to be able to get out of the big red and the big blue and come from the more open source type of SQL servers. Yeah.
Yeah. So you think there'll be a Babelfish for Oracle next?
Oh, they have to.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's the main, focus. Like, get off of Oracle. That has been the crusade for the last 2 years. So I'm sure Babelfish is going to come for that.
Yeah. So I think anyone who's currently invested in SQL Server and is looking at the eye-watering licensing costs associated with running it in AWS, we're running it anywhere, really.
Yeah.
But I mean, if you all you have to do is compare the costs of Aurora Postgres and RDS SQL Server to see where the money can be saved, and it can be a very significant amount of money. So,
well, Aurora is a very mature product, right? You have very high availability, very good performance. So the backend is fantastic.
Oh yeah.
Having now Babelfish in front. At no extra cost, by the way. When you set up an Aurora cluster, you need to have version 13.4, but then you can, install Babelfish for free, and that's going to be a massive improvement. I've got some customer interested. We need to do some more testing and understand the compatibility. We are a bit scared that off-the-shelf product, they're not going to be supported. The vendor going to say, no, you need to use SQL 17 or something like that. But I think it was a test for any internal app, and could buy a license. I mean, Microsoft has been pretty bad since 2019 when they set up this new rule of not bringing your own license, and two standard, one for Azure, one for themselves, and then one for the other cloud. Yeah, that was coming, right? So
yeah. I mean, it looks pretty complete. I mean, they've got support for static cursors, data types, triggers, stored procedures, and functions. So it's no slouch. And I think the other thing too is that there's a huge number of workloads out there, I would say, that are using SQL Server because they were written by .NET developers who only understand Microsoft technologies and they would have just plugged in SQL Server because, hey, we get it free with their MSDN license. And now the application's grown and we have to run it on enterprise and it's costing us a fortune. And how did we ever come to this point? But they're not actually doing anything particularly fancy. They're not actually doing anything particularly complicated. They're not necessarily using any of the more arcane specialist proprietary features in SQL Server. They're just using it as a database. Mm-hmm. So I think there's going to be a lot of applications out there today that could run on this quite happily, and it'll be very interesting to see how the take up looks. 6 months from now, a year from now, be interesting to see what how many workloads they manage to pull off SQL Server and onto Oracle Postgres. Aurora Postgres. Wash my mouth out with soap.
Arjen, how long did it took? That was announced a year ago, 2 years ago.
It was the last reInvent.
So it took 12 months. Yeah.
Yeah. It's not too bad in how long it took.
Considering how complex this thing is, I think too, or how many cases they would need to test. I guess I'm not. I think this is good. Like a year out, it's a pretty good result.
A lot of testing. I recommend people, if they want to use it, test it, load test it, see what it looks like, and get free of licensing.
Yep.
Yeah.
And if you need to have it on-prem, there's also an open source version of it available.
Yeah, I wonder what you need in the backend to install that. Yeah.
I think it's Postgres.
No, but if you need an agent, you put an agent on the box, that'll run in memory. What's the package you need to...
Well, it says here, today we are excited to announce the release of open source Babelfish for Postgres, a capability that lets Postgres understand queries from applications written for Microsoft SQL Server. It's a set of extensions that provide T-SQL capabilities and TDS listener port as enhancements to Postgres.
So it will listen on port 1433, right? And then redirect to, what is it? Postgres 5438. Do you think that's going to be that?
It doesn't sound so. It sounds like from this that it kind of sits alongside. It doesn't sit in front of. It sits alongside of. And it's just another. It probably bypasses a lot of the Postgres, the Postgres server, and goes direct to data stores or underlying, lower level operations it does itself.
Yeah, because you can also still use Postgres directly.
Yeah, directly. Yeah.
So
it's just two different endpoints for the same database.
Yeah.
So Postgres 5432. Sorry, I did a mistake.
So it's got four extensions. There's a extension that supports T-SQL. There's an extension that supports TDS-Y protocol. There's a common one which supports new data types found in T-SQL. And there's a money extension supporting the money type in SQL Server. So there you go. So it's four different extensions.
Yeah, you basically bake them into Postgres.
Yep, and you have to patch. That's right. You patch Postgres and you add those extensions to it essentially. So it's like a fish elephant.
Okay, moving on. RDS proxy supports MySQL
version 8. Yep,
which is nice.
Mm-hmm.
We have AWS knock-on SSDs. So the common SSDs now 14 terabyte of SSD instead of 8 terabyte of disk. I found that, great that they offer SSDs much more reliable, much more shock resistance, I guess, as well. 2 CPU, 4 gig memory. The device fee for the SSD is much more expensive, though. It's $150 for the job and then $15 per day instead of $6 per day for the other one. And if you lose a device, it's $5,000. So don't lose it.
And they're so small, so easy to lose.
There's a couple of OpenSearch announcements, cross-cluster replication support, and improvements to the management console. As I think, probably had announcements last month, I think they're going to probably come fairly consistently, announcements around OpenSearch. Clearly, Amazon are working on this and, wanting to leave behind the Elasticsearch legacy, I guess, and break their own new ground with what OpenSearch can be. Yeah, expect more announcements.
Yeah, this one, I mean, the cluster replication is a great feature. In the past, they had to export, indexes and copy them and then re-import them, all of that. Now it can be done automatically for you across the two clusters and keep them in sync and stuff like that. So for high availability, really a good, even across regions, right? To be able to have open search services now across region, highly available. We had the Oracle custom RDS Oracle. It's quite interesting, to be able to have, for the first time, SSH to an RDS instance and be able to do more stuff with the OS than you used to be, to allow people to move basically to Oracle faster on RDS from on-prem when you have, the Apex app and all this other kind of stuff around that you carry. There is no multi-AZ option though for that. It's only single AZ.
The only other, because I'm studying for the data analytics exam at the moment, so I did see did note the glue crawler support for Amazon S3 event notifications announcement looks quite nice. It basically supports S3 event notifications as a source for glue crawlers to incrementally update glue data catalog tables. So it does that by sending of S3 event notifications to an SQS queue, which the crawler then reads from and uses as a trigger for rerunning the glue job to check for new data and index it.
Cool. So instead of running your crawler on schedule or something, you just wait for the notification, yeah?
That's right. So it's more efficient and you run your crawler for less time, so it saves you money and, all that stuff,
Nice.
On the AI and ML side, some, I feel like, fairly minor improvements to various SageMaker things. I'm not sure what the big advantages are, so I'll skip them.
I didn't look. Amazon Kendra launched support for 34 additional languages. So a lot of them now. And the new language are available in US, Oregon, Ireland, and Sydney.
Yes, so that's good. Fraud detector has a big price reduction.
Sort of. It's not really a big price reduction. So it's a big It's a big price reduction if you're doing 100,000 fraud predictions per month. So basically they've shifted the tiers for the discounts down from 1.2 million to get to that cheapest number. You now only have to do 100,000. So it's a significant saving if you are doing a lot of fraud detection, fraud predictions per month, but it's not really a price reduction per se, in the sense that you're still going to be paying quite a bit for the first 100,000.
And similarly, Fraud Detector has some improvements as well. Another one, though, that I did find interesting is with Transcribe. For streaming transcription, you can now support custom language models. So in Transcribe, custom language models are basically where you can define what certain terms, how they should be shown. So, for example, if we are talking about a lot of AWS things and services, we might want to automatically understand how EBS, VPC, MACI, all these kind of acronyms and possibly strange names, how they are shown. And it's nice to see that is also now possible when you're streaming instead of just when you run the transcripts later on.
Cool.
Of course, we've seen how good Transcribe works with our podcast. So don't expect us to start using it.
Yeah. But it's available in Sydney if you want to play with it. Yeah.
On other cool stuff.
A couple of IoT announcements, which I'm guessing you expect I'm going to be excited about. So the IoT Core now makes it optional for customers to send the entire trust chain when provisioning devices. So previously, if you wanted to onboard a bunch of existing devices, it would be a major pain in the clack. This announcement just makes this a little bit easier. So if you've got an existing fleet of devices, they can be onboarded into IoT Core more readily. And with SiteWise, you can now basically model one, you can create an asset model that you can then reuse. So if you've got a lot of the same thing, rather than having to re-describe them, you can cut and paste. You can reuse that asset model multiple times in your site-wise.
Cool. And a long-awaited thing that we've all been anxiously awaiting for is the support of VMware Cloud on AWS Outposts. This was actually in the original announcement of Outposts back in 2019.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you must, yes.
That's some real Inception shit, isn't it? Like it's so you're inside the dream and you're having a nightmare and you're inside VMware in an outpost in a on-prem
managed by VMware. So I'll remind everyone that VMware or VMC or this one VMware on Outpost, it's owned by VMware. So you rely on VMware. That's why maybe took so long to deploy. It's not AWS, it's more VMware. But your instance will live on your AWS Outpost, but all the rest is managed by VMware. So interesting component. Why you would do that? I'm not sure. It takes 4 to 6 weeks to provision. We're coming back, in time, and having to provision hardware to be able to create VMware environment. Why not running that on your own hardware?
Presumably because you want to integrate with Lambda and RDS and whatever, all the other AWS services.
Yeah, but you would do that in cloud, not on-prem. So, yeah, not sure.
Well, who are you to say? I'll do it on-prem if I feel like it. Isn't that what Outposts is all about?
With your other Outpost. But no, you can't have any, you can have only your VMware on that Outpost. You can't have any other things. You need another Outpost for that.
Right. So your Outpost that's got VMware is only dedicated to VMware hardware. You cannot run anything else on that. You can't run...
It's managed by VMware as well.
Wow, okay. Yeah, okay.
So not too bad.
That is interesting. Okay. Learn something new every day. Especially doing this podcast. I learn, Mr. Faulty, I learn.
And you use the VMware Cloud Portal and all of that to provision that. Yeah.
Yeah, gotcha.
Another new service is AWS Panorama.
Yeah. Did you have a look at this? I was sort of trying to see exactly how it fits in because it seems like it's it's computer vision at the edge. So
it's an appliance, right? Yeah.
It's an appliance. It's got self-contained compute and it's got a couple of Ethernet ports. You can hook it up to some stuff.
To cameras, yep.
Yeah, to cameras and do image processing on-prem. So it's like what was the little camera they had? The lens? What was it? The thing that actually...
Deep lens.
Deep lens. So it's like they've taken the camera off the deep lens, made it bigger and put it in a box.
And you provide your own IP cameras. So you have a charge per cameras, per feed. You need to pay for the appliance, which is $4,000. The appliance itself is a one-time charge. And then you have a $8.33 per feed. So, and then you have to pay for your S3 and all of that, obviously, to store all these images. But, you push down your model, you do your analysis on-prem of your feed, and, you can display your telemetries and all of that. So, cool stuff if you need to do that.
Yep. Mm-hmm. Yep. And I mention it again because doing this study for this data analytics course, QuickSight now has support for pixel perfect dashboards.
So tell me what it is, pixel perfect. Do I need a retina display?
So what it means is that instead of having a relatively fixed grid of widgets on your dashboard, you can move them around. And you can, have more control over their size and their position and the layering of them. And there's also support for dynamic resizing based on based on the data. So if something, so it can be context sensitive depending on what the state is of a thing. So it's just about being able to customize the dashboards to be more useful, I guess, and less rigidly mapped out for you.
Cool. Okay. So it's improving the product.
Yes, I think it's probably improving the product quite a bit. Yeah.
And it's available in Sydney.
Yep.
Cool. And that brings us to the end of the episode. I hope you all enjoyed listening and maybe learned something new, just like I did. Before we sign off, I want to thank the user group sponsors for their support. That is our gold sponsor, CMD, and our silver sponsors, CIFO and Fersen. Of course, I also want to join my co-hosts for spending this time with me, Guy Morton.
Thank you, Arjen. A pleasure as always.
And Jean-Manuel Becker.
Thank you, Arjen. Thank you, Guy. Thank you, listener.
Also, I want to call out that you can find the user group itself at melb.awsug.org.au or as at AWSmelb on Twitter. If you go to our website, you can also join our Slack where plenty of AWS-focused discussions take place. So, thank you all for listening, and we'll be back next month. Goodbye.
Bye.
Bye.